Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. It is episode number 111. And I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. How are you feeling tonight, my man?
As I was saying offline, it feels like I've seen more of you than I have of anybody in my life. And this is developing into a very codependent relationship. But you know what? I don't mind it. We're here. More games means Inter Miami's winning. And that's the best feeling that you can have as a fan. I'm excited to talk ball tonight, man, because I was unable to join the post game reaction yesterday. I don't know what was discussed. I don't know what your reaction was. So it'll be good to get your thoughts on the game and give my thoughts to you and see if we match up. But other than that, how are you?
I am feeling good, energized. I am happy that you have a soccer team that is competitive for once. I know that you haven't gotten that from your other favorite team in Manchester United, although I guess they got a big win Thursday. So congratulations to you for that. Tonight's episode, we're going to talk about the game, right? As we always do, we'll break it down. We'll do the rundown. We'll talk tactics, analytics, analysis, and then we'll give out some awards. That's sort of the game plan. But before we do, there are a couple team notes that I wanted to mention. So I guess we should just get right into it. David Ruiz, who did come off injured in the 15th minute last night, 15th minute last night, he has a hamstring injury. They say he's going to miss about 3 to 4 weeks, which means that he will miss the international window with Honduras, which is a tough break for him personally. But I think it's nice that it's not going to be a long-term thing. It's not super serious. And Inter Miami, with the international break coming up, won't be without him for too long. So I think good news considering what happened. Obviously, if a player comes up limping, it can be really bad, or it can be like 2 to 4 weeks. And this looks like it's going to be the 3 to 4 week variety. Benjamin Kramaski called up to the U20 national team for the U.S. MNT. This window, they have a camp preparing for that U20 World Cup. And the U.S. team is starting to really come into shape. They have a lot of MLS players that are getting real minutes for their MLS clubs on that team. And Kramaski is in line again to be the captain of that team or one of the leaders. So he misses out on the national team, the senior national team, but he's against one of the sort of leaders of that U20 team. And then lastly, Cole Jensen signs with the Union Omaha of the USL1, a player that left Inter Miami last in the offseason, has found a club. So if you were waiting to check that off your list, you now can. Cole Jensen signs with Union Omaha of the USL1. That is the third tier of American soccer. Cide dos Santos found himself into a starting gig. Hopefully, Cole Jensen can do the same.
Yeah, the goalkeeper situation at Inter Miami never seems to settle itself. So I'm just glad Cole Jensen has found himself a new club. David Ruiz, gutted for him. I thought yesterday's game was tailor-made for him. He has that Honduras experience of playing in such fields. And before he could get started, 14th minute, he had to pull up non-contact. Never great to see your player go down like that. He seemed in a bit of pain, so I was a little bit worried that he is actually going to be out for the long term. But 3 to 4 weeks is not too bad in today's day and age. I think he'll be back shortly after the international break, which is good. The international break comes at a good time for some of our players to return as well, in Fafa Pico, maybe Robert Taylor. So that position will eventually be filled up, but hopefully David Ruiz can come back strong and come back quick. And then Benjamin Kramaski, I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about him today. Did not have a particularly great game yesterday. We can get into it more, but happy for him. He's obviously that leader in that U20 squad. I'm not sure if he's the finished article yet to go up and play with the senior team. But there's so much potential there. And I hope that he's able to prove that why he's so important to this Inter Miami squad.
Yeah. I mean, that's the news. We're still waiting for updates on Alan Obando and Baltasar Rodriguez. It doesn't feel like we're going to get Alan Obando for Sunday's game against Atlanta at this point. So I guess we'll see them both after the international window. And that's really it for the roster. Julian Gressel did not make the trip to Jamaica. Neither did Drake Callender. Two guys that have had question marks around them and have yet to make their season debuts. It wouldn't be a shock to me if there was some movement during this window for Julian Gressel. But again, I think Inter Miami's really happy to just wait and and do what's best for them instead of having any sort of desperation to get things going. So we're sort of in a holding pattern. They're going to bring in these two young players, and then we'll get going in the second part of the season. Now, Inter Miami sort of handled this first 5 or 6 games of the season, I think, pretty well.
It's not really the second part of the season, right? It's not even the 1/4. It's a section of the season.
It's escaping. It's escaping the entrance.
Yeah. We just gotten out of the door, and honestly, in 4 gear, we're doing really well. Still unbeaten, man. We haven't talked about that. Inter Miami is still unbeaten in professional games this season. Javier Mascherano has not lost a single game as Inter Miami coach. That's fantastic. There's a lot of talking points to just condense and summarize all these games that we've seen. There have been some tough moments. There have been some really good games, some really good performances, but that's for another midweek episode, I think. Today, we have to talk about the game that we saw yesterday. Should we start?
Let's get into it. Let's start with the breakdown. You ready?
Absolutely. Do you want to go into your I always get that word wrong. Do you want to go into your monologue first, or do you want top line comments from me about the game?
I think that we need to add some music to the monologue, because then it will feel like an official thing. Let me do the monologue. We'll get through it, and then we can get your thoughts on it, because I know we didn't get those yesterday. The Herons of the Caribbean once again make their way to Kingston in another CONCACAF Champions battle with Cavalier, knowing one goal likely sees them through. Messi's first time in Jamaica, the crowd was up for it. Cavalier, not so much. A number of early first half chances, Luis Suárez, Maxi Falcón, Benjamin Kramaski, but the decisive moment comes in the 35th minute. Tadeo Allende brings down a long ball and touches it towards goal, and Cavalier left back Christopher Ainsworth takes a swipe at his legs in the box. Ainsworth says, "It wasn't me," but the infraction was obvious. Luis Suárez pulls a Sean Paul, and he has the right temperature for a perfect penal. The goal effectively ended the tie with one dramatic entrance still to come. But first, Allende pushes it forward to Kramaski in the 50th minute. He bodies off Ainsworth to get a one-on-one with the keeper at the edge of the 6-yard box, but the golden boy turns bronze. Lets the opportunity go. I think that's a moment we're going to want to talk about, but really the big moment comes in the 53rd minute, because Yannick Bright comes into the game alongside, wait a minute, it's a Lionel Messi sighting, back on the pitch to the delight of the Kingston crowd. Second half passes in a mundane stalwart until the final moment, saving the best for last. Santi Morales with a lovely flick through the defense to Messi, who wasn't going to miss, and every little thing is going to be all right. Herons win, Herons advance. See you in LA.
Soliloquy. That's the word I was trying to use. Beautifully done, as always. A round of applause from my side, but I will agree. A bit of music in the background would definitely add to the color. You made a Sean Paul reference. I don't think anybody who's in the Gen Z would probably get that reference. I do, so I appreciate it. Yeah,
there's a Bob Marley reference in there too, and there's a Shaggy too reference.
There you go, quite a few.
I went for it, man. I went for it.
You're being very creative with these, and I really like it. Game, set, match. On to the next round. What else do you want to say? Inter Miami doing a very, very professional job on Cavalier. First of all, I just want to take a moment to appreciate this Cavalier team for showing off for 2 games at Inter Miami's home, and then at their stadium, well, not their stadium, but in Jamaica at the National Stadium. They tried. They really tried. They had some good moments. And overall, I was very pleased for their fans. They brought the atmosphere yesterday as well, filled up the National Stadium, and gave Inter Miami a real run for their money away from home. So overall, a great tie. I'm not sure if you've spoken about Cavalier yet, but I just wanted to give them a little bit of a commendation. It's always really fun to just learn about some of these new, different teams, and CONCACAF gives you the opportunity to do that. I'm looking forward to learning about LAFC, from this far off land that we've never heard of. But Cavalier is probably going to be, I think they're probably the least known team now that we're facing this year, at least, unless we see somebody in the League's Cup. overall, great tie. Inter Miami getting the job done. Yesterday's game was basically a reflection of how a professional game of football should be played. When you have the quality, you just have to go out there, do your job. Nothing big, nothing flashy. Everyone performed their duties how they should. Wasn't a phenomenal game, boring at times as well, but the tie was more or less over as soon as that penalty call on Allende was called. And I think Inter Miami deserved to go through, obviously. But yeah, I think it was a good performance, professional. I would like to credit our defense, though. Our setup was fantastic. Javier Mascherano made some really good adjustments. We can talk about the tactics, but there was a few things that I was seeing different from the first leg, and same personnel in the midfield, but quite a few changes here and there, which made it a lot more easier. So good to see that Javier Mascherano is able to adapt and understand what needs to be done to make it as comfortable for your players on the pitch. Speaking of the pitch, not great to play on, but I guess eventually it didn't have too much to say. But I was very happy with how that game progressed. And on to the next round, man. Quarterfinals, here we come.
Yeah, I think there was a lot to break down, but I think this game was sort of mundane. I want to start with the first point you made, and I talked about it last night. In fact, this is how I started the instant reaction. Cavalier, man, I'm such a huge fan of what they do. Learning about them was so fun, and learning about the Jamaican Premier League was such a treat. And being able to watch the film and prepare for the pregame shows, I had a ton of fun doing that, much more than I do when we learn about NYCFC or Charlotte or whatever. So I wish CONCACAF provided more opportunities for us to sort of do this type of thing. I'm sure that we could design a CONCACAF Champions Cup tournament that was, I think, better overall. But we'll have that conversation another day. I'm thinking about buying a Cavalier kit, but the problem is they have two that are pretty nice. I can't decide which one to get. Yeah. So again, congrats to Cavalier. I thought they were a little bit worse yesterday. I think that the pitch didn't help them. I thought it hurt them as much or more than it hurt Miami. They were also playing away from home, so a big crowd for them, right? They normally play in front of 3,000. Even last week in Miami, they were probably playing in front of 10 to 13,000, if that, for a midweek game at Chase Stadium. 35,000 last night. So it's a big deal for them. I'm sure it was emotional. I'm sure it was an incredible moment for them and their families. And I know that Cavalier fans or JPL fans are probably thinking it was a little disappointing. If things had gone a little bit different, if they had gone our way, maybe we could have really made this a game of it, or made this tie a game of it. But I think they're going to look back in 2 weeks and say, we represented ourselves pretty well. And the truth is we were probably never going to get past Inter Miami. So considering we weren't going to do that, I thought they played pretty well.
Yeah, they had their chances in the second half as well. A few shots on Ustari's goal, but they were much less threatening this time around than in the first leg. They might have given everything that they had in that first leg. And I think Inter Miami did just the right things to completely shut down the threats that Cavalier has to offer. But regardless, they were a good opponent, and credit where credit's due. They made it hard, at least in some portions of this leg and this tie.
Yeah. 8th minute, Talasco Segovia had a nice shot from outside the box.
Outside the box.
He put it wide. Suárez sort of receives a ball and just sort of turns around on the volley and slams it towards goal. He also put it wide, but a couple of really nice opportunities created, half chances that turned into sit up and think to yourself, this could have been a goal. Maxi Falcón off a corner had a nice header right at goal, but there was just enough bodies in the box to push it away. And then Kramaski had a nice moment, and maybe we should stop there. 25th minute, Kramaski gets himself into the box on that left side. Really looked like Robert Taylor for a second there.
Doesn't shoot.
No. That's the one you're thinking about is in the second half.
Later.
The 25th minute, he finds himself inside the box. He has Suárez there sort of at the edge of the 6-yard box where he could have dumped it off to him for a tap in that way. Instead, he goes for goal. Vino Bartlett, the Cavalier goalkeeper, does make the save with his right foot. A lot of people were complaining about that moment because Suárez was probably open if Kramaski makes a nice pass. I didn't as much. I think he was probably trying to catch the keeper off guard. And I actually wonder if that moment affected his confidence going into the second half, because maybe the right play was to play to Suárez, but if that was Robert Taylor, if that was Messi or Suárez, you wouldn't have complained at all if they took the shot there. So I don't know. I don't know if you had a problem with that. I don't even, do you even remember the play I'm talking about?
I don't have players having a shot at goal, especially when it's on target and the goalkeeper has to make some sort of a save. It's fine. These are professional players. Kromaski has proven that he can score from those positions. So that's all right. Of course, when you're 0-0 or when you're still in a narrow lead, you do want your players to make some of those correct decisions, but you learn from it. I'm not too fast. I know people like to criticize and jump on certain player decisions, but in that moment, what you're thinking, how it's happening, it's a quick decision that you have to make. It's okay. I didn't mind it at all.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. The big moment, 35th minute, Christopher Ainsworth kind of completely misses the ball, swipes it to Tadeo Allende's legs. I mean, I thought it was an obvious foul, clear penalty. And then Luis Suárez with you can't shoot a penalty any better than Luis Suárez shot that. Kiss off the post and in. That's as good as it could be done. And Inter Miami gets the 1-0 lead. That forced Cavalier into a situation where they needed 4 goals in order to advance. It was never going to happen. So that goal basically ended the tie. I thought there was a chance that Inter Miami might crack a little bit at that point. They didn't, which I thought was a positive. Luis Suárez did try a couple bicycle kicks, but other than that, the game was pretty calm, pretty relaxed, pretty in control, pretty mundane, it was a stalemate for the next 60 minutes and 50 minutes. And I don't know, not a ton to talk about.
It was a bit of a cruise, right? And I want to talk a little bit about that goal as well, because it was Ian Frey who passed that ball into Allende. And that, for me, is the perfect example of how we've been playing on that right-hand side. Allende making that run in, and then either we finding him a through ball or a ball over the top, and Ian Frey with a fantastic ball. I thought he was quietly good. For Inter Miami, this was a game for their defense. Their defense did everything that they needed to do to stop the athleticism, the speed the Cavalier was bringing their way, and then the midfield. Those, I think, were the standouts for me. I thought we could have done slightly better in the final third overall. We created enough opportunities to at least score a couple of more goals. So I was a little disappointed that we didn't get a goal until Messi came on the pitch, or even have too many clear-cut chances where you could see it was, an easy tap in or a goal. So perhaps the front line you can criticize a little bit, but it was cruise control for most parts. Absolutely mundane. Another day on the job, and credit to Inter Miami for keeping it very professional and keeping it very simple, because we know that Inter Miami, especially this Inter Miami team, loves to complicate their lives. So I was just glad that there was no moment where I had my heart in my mouth and we could just have a nice, relaxing Thursday evening watching Inter Miami play football.
Yeah. You mentioned it, Inter Miami. They created a ton of chances, 19 shots, 4 big chances. I guess it is a little disappointing they only got two goals and really 1 goal. I mean, it was a great way to finish, but that almost feels like separate because the game was sort of very relaxed at that point.
And also that 1 goal was a penalty, so it just dampens the mood a little bit.
But a lot of our best chances came in that first 35 minutes. Once we scored the goal, it felt like our chances sort of dried up and they were more pitter-patter. The one big moment I mentioned in the rundown, 50th minute, just after halftime, Allende pushes the ball forward to Kromaski, who bodies off, I believe it was Ainsworth, and creates an unbelievable opportunity for himself, like not just inside the box, but getting close to the 6-yard box. And he pulls up. It was weird.
That was a confidence issue, I think. He wasn't comfortable shooting that ball, and you could see it very clearly. That's why I thought that's the one you were referencing, because that was very clear that he got caught in 2 minds.
It was to me a direct replay of the first one, and I didn't really make this connection the first time I watched when I was watching live, but on the rewatch, it was very clear to me that he was told, "Listen, you got to make that pass to Suárez the first time." And so the second time he's thinking, okay, Suárez is going to be making this run. I'll pull up and get it to him. And of course, no one was there. He obviously has to take that. He'll look back on the replay and think to himself, what could have possibly gone through my mind to not make that shot? But it felt like a direct reflection of what happened in that first half.
Yeah, and that's why you have to realize sometimes, and I feel like I always make this point in reference to Kramaski, because people are too quick to judge and criticize these young players. There will be games where they'll frustrate you and they'll not perform up to par. I think Kramaski has looked quite sharp these last few games. Over the course of the 5 games that we've played, right? We've played 5 games so far since the season started, maybe 7, I'm not sure. But over the course of the last games,
seven.
Inter Miami has consistently used Benjamin Kramaski in a certain way on the right-hand side of the pitch or the wings on the left. That's not his natural position. He usually plays in the middle of the park. He's learning a new role. He's playing well. He's taking players on. That opportunity he created for himself. Allende with a really good ball into him, but he made that run to
he bodied off the defender.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there are some positives that I saw from Kramaski, and I know his touch isn't the best. He has improved in it. You can see that his one-touch passing has definitely improved, especially on the right with Ian Frey. He's looked a lot silkier, a lot more clinical with his passing. But he's going to have games where he's going to struggle a little bit. The pitch may have been a little bit off yesterday. Don't know what's going through his mind. There can be a ton of things. We are allowed to criticize for sure, but I don't want this to be an overreaction saying that Benjamin Kramaski doesn't deserve to start. He deserves to be benched. There are going to be instances where you are frustrated with some of these young players. It will happen with every single player on this Inter Miami squad, barring Yannick Bright. So it's okay. It's okay. We should criticize Luis Suarez. Of course, we should criticize Luis Suarez because I always think about criticizing Luis Suarez. Apologies. We should criticize Benjamin Kramaski, but only up until a certain point. Let's not have an overreaction on that. And speaking of Luis Suarez, I thought he played well.
Yeah. We'll get back to Kramaski later, I'm sure. But in the meantime, let's just keep going. A couple minutes later, Lionel Messi does return to the pitch. I just want to say I'm incredibly happy that the fans that were there got to see Messi play. It was a very dull, I thought, 30 minutes from him until the end. Like, he clearly really wanted it, but the way the game was going, it was just not conducive to creating a lot of chances for him. So, I mean, the fact that he gets the goal at the end was really nice, but I don't think there was anything to take away from him specifically. Not a great field, but he looked comfortable, healthy, and I think he's going to play on Saturday.
I was just happy for Richard King and Ainsworth, who got a couple of tackles into him, because that's a story they're never going to forget, right? Getting Messi off the ball. No, you could see he was trying to dribble. He was trying to do his usual thing, but obviously the pitch is a little bit bouncy with how shaved down it is. And at that point, it felt like a little bit too congested for him to actually make a difference. Didn't necessarily have the Alba Busquets behind him to put those balls into him. So it was just, I think, to get him up to speed before the Atlanta game and give him a few minutes in his legs to just get back into physical shape. But he still scores. So what else do you want from him?
Yeah. And then the final moment to talk about, 92nd minute, Yannick Bright wins the ball because, of course, it's him. Pushes it forward to Redondo, who pushes it to Santi Morales. Santi Morales, who had some nice moments in this game in the final 15 minutes with a really, really nice, like, pop through the defense to set Messi up, who was making one of those runs, sort of slanted runs behind the defense that for some reason that defense just doesn't see happening. Finds himself completely wide open and touches it past the keeper. Inter Miami goes up 2-0, wins it 2-0, and really happy for Messi, the fans, everyone. I mean, honestly, like, a great way to finish the game. Final touch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think 2-0 is definitely better than 1-0. Great finish by him. The goalkeeper, I think, had a bit of a nightmare. Shouldn't have come out that easily because Messi was definitely beating him to the ball. So maybe he had a better chance of saving it if Messi shot that ball, but probably not. Yeah.
Goalkeeper might as well not have been there.
Yeah. But overall, I thought a good game. Nothing too major from Inter Miami. I thought Redondo was good. Delasco Segovia was good. Much better than I thought, at least in the first half of the game. He was a little bit better. Had that really nice shot on goal that was slightly wide, but also got into good positions, had some good passing. Suarez, I thought, had a good movement. Allende continues to play well. Didn't get his goal this time around, but still had an impact, got that penalty. Yannick Bright, there was one moment. Yannick Bright had won the ball, gave it back, won the ball again, gave it back, and then won the ball again. I was like, this is perfect. This is what Yannick Bright does. He just does not lose the ball.
It's like a rebounder who just like keeps missing shots, but getting his own rebounds just to accumulate stats.
He's like, I'm gonna create problems for myself so that I can up my stats of interceptions. So that was really funny. David Ruiz was one of the ones that I felt a little bit sorry for, because I thought he could have had a good game today and just get a run out, but didn't work out for him. I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot of these players in the awards as well, but overall, I just want to highlight, I think this game demonstrated how Inter Miami should have played that first leg.
Yeah. Well, I want to spend some time talking about that, but before we do, let's talk about Cavalier, because I have a theory, not a theory, but I have a thought, and it's a dumb thought, and I'm openly admitting it's a dumb thought. So just,
Hey, listen, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So who knows? Maybe this is a revolutionary thought.
I'd rather be the kind of broken clock that's wrong twice a day, but it's neither here nor there. David Martinez feels like surplus to requirements. I think we're trending in a way that would see him not have his loan turned permanent in the summer.
I can see that.
Everything can change, of course, but I can see him going back to River Plate in the summer and Inter Miami looking to bring in another center back. Now, I'm not suggesting this is a player they would go for early on, but if they wanted to bring in another center back, they have an international roster slot, and they don't want to spend a lot of money on it, you could see a guy like Richard King making his way to the MLS at some point. And I will just add, a lot of these guys that Mascherano has found and brought in, especially a guy like Telasco Segovia. He knows about Segovia because he had to play against him. He had to scout him while preparing to play against the Venezuelan U23 team. So I'm not saying Richard King is going to be a Heron. I'm just saying that if Inter Miami is looking out for a center back in the summer, Inter Miami would have scouted this player more than anyone else in the MLS. So I thought they did a great job. I thought they have a lot of exciting young players. I thought their best player in the first game, other than perhaps Richard King, was Dwayne Atkinson, who was a very technical and speedy player. I thought he was really going to struggle in this game because of the pitch. Very difficult to be technical and really get everything working smoothly. So he was sort of a non-factor in my opinion. Jalmaro Calvin, we'll talk about how they sort of neutralized him, but he was really a non-factor in this game. The way they set their midfield up was, I thought, worse than what they did in the first game. And listen, Inter Miami responded to change the way they set up their formation or their midfield to counter what Cavalier did in the first game. And so I think it was just a battle of wits, and Cavalier had the right plan in the first game, the wrong plan in the second game. And I thought there was really nothing that they could do once Inter Miami got settled in the way they needed to be.
Yeah, and listen, it may not be a wrong plan, right? It may not have been a perfect plan, but quality shines after a point. So it was kind of hard for Cavalier to get going in this game. There was a comment during the game by the commentary team where they said that Rudolph Speed is the only coach in Jamaica who has the highest top-level coaching.
No. He's the only coach in the Caribbean that has
a
CONCACAF A license. Yeah.
The fact that he's the only one who has a CONCACAF A license, and listen, the resources that this Cavalier team has are nothing compared to what Inter Miami has at its disposal. So we really need to credit the way they showed up. And this could have been a game where you and I would have thought that Cavalier would get absolutely torn apart, but they did not. They held their own for at least a majority of the tie. And credit to them for doing that. They have some really promising players. You've already mentioned Richard King. I don't know if he comes to Inter Miami, of course.
No, I don't. He's not Argentine enough.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe he can do a Fafa Pico and come to Inter Miami as the one player that we signed per transfer window who's not Argentinian, but definitely promise there. He's a very talented player. He's still young, and I'm sure a lot of scouts in the MLS would have been watching this game and looking at Richard King being like, this kid has promise. Dwayne Atkinson, of course, did not have that much to do this game, was not able to be effective as such. I think Inter Miami's midfield really neutralized what Cavalier was trying to do. And then some of the attacking options with Jalmaro Calvin, they really tried to beat us in the wings last time around, pop those balls into the wide spaces. And this time we had Noah Allen covering that wide angle. We had Maxi Falcón basically marauding the byline if anything came down his route. That's a player I really want to talk about. But I thought Maxi Falcón and Noah Allen absolutely nullified anything that Cavalier had to offer. But regardless, they tried. They put their best foot forward. And I thought gave Inter Miami a good competition.
Yeah, and you think about the 4 goals Inter Miami scored. One was a very sort of unlucky, the first goal Inter Miami scored with Tadeo Allende. Unlucky sort of ball bouncing around the box, and it just finds the foot of Tadeo Allende. They gave up a penalty, and they gave up a goal in the final 5 seconds of the 180-minute tie. And that was 3 of the 4 goals they allowed. They could have lost 10-0 over 2 games. Like, that's, I think, what a lot of people maybe thought was going to happen. So I agree. They played really well, for expectations. You mentioned they're a very young team. You mentioned Kramaski being a young player and having to learn. Kramaski would be a veteran on this team. Richard King, their captain, 23. The oldest player is 25, was their keeper. So they had a lot of teenagers and stuff. They said it on the broadcast. They only recruit teenagers into their program. So that's incredible. It's just, I'm a huge fan of Cavalier. I don't know if we need to talk about them anymore, but
no, but I'll just end by saying it has a really positive vibe as a football club. And I learned about this new club, and I really like what they stand for. And I think that's the best part about CONCACAF, that you get to learn about some of these new clubs. Some you get to hate, and then some you tend to appreciate and fall in love with. A lot to really be proud of for Cavalier fans. So keep your heads up, and maybe one day we'll see you again in the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about why this game was easier, because that first game had some dangerous moments. I mean, they put the ball in the back of the net to take a 1-0 lead in the tie in the stoppage time of the first half of that first leg. We got lucky that it got called offsides, but they were coming after us. They felt like the better team for those 10, 15 minutes at the end of that first half in leg 1. This game, much easier. And I thought the biggest difference was 2 tactical adjustments that Javier Mascherano made. In the first leg, he had Redondo play way high up the pitch. It was clear he wanted to get numbers into the box so that little balls tipping around the box, there would be an extra body to try and create a goal. I think that's the type of plan you go in if you think you're going to win 5 or 6-0. Clearly, he pulled that back. Federico Redondo played as a traditional number 6, just right next to Busquets the entire game, or the first hour of the game.
Sometime even deeper.
Yeah, which is exactly what we wanted. It's exactly what we talked about in the pregame show. So I loved that. And then the other one is Ian Frey. Did not go forward at all. I watched him go forward. Well, he did. In the 76th minute, he goes forward one time. And I remember thinking, as I'm rewatching this game, like, I should write that down, because that's the only time I've seen him go forward this entire game.
Very passive. Very passive.
Last game.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, last game, you're talking about David Martinez, Maxi Falcón, and Busquets trying to stop this freakishly athletic counterattack of Cavalier. This game, you put Redondo, put Ian Frey back there. You make it much more difficult to get wide. You put Noah Allen in, who covers more space down that right wing or I guess our left side. And it felt like we were much more secure for the counter, and we still had the quality going forward to create a goal or 2 to make sure that we won this game. So I thought this was exactly what Inter Miami needed to do, especially with the 1-goal lead, with the first game, 2-goal lead, and not having given up an away goal. They needed to just sit back and let their talent get them the goals, and let their structure provide the defensive stability they needed. That's exactly what happened. They were comfortable on the ball. I thought they actually had a lower percent of possession, but I think during the point of this game where it was still alive, the first hour or so, it was huge, 75-80% Miami. So, I mean, they just did exactly what they needed to do.
But wasn't it still like 65% or something?
Yeah, I think it was like 70% in the first game, 65%.
Okay, fair. No, I think you absolutely hit the nail on its head. The biggest change, I think, was in the midfield. Had to be, because if you're putting Busquets and Redondo next to each other, you don't have the legs to be able to play a high midfield line. And Busquets has to be that middleman between the number 10 and the deep lying 6. He can't be the sole 6 sitting back by himself. And yes, he can proceed and play up as number 10 as well, but that's usually where Messi, in this instance, Segovia plays. So you want him to be that connector between the defense and the front line. And you need somebody who has legs in behind. I liked Redondo's play. I thought he kept it very simple. He was very disciplined with his positioning as well. Often at times sitting further back in the middle of the defense, quite deep, just to cover out all the bases, which was great. It comes at the expense of us not creating as many opportunities or as many dangerous opportunities. But I think when you have that 2-goal cushion, I'm happy with that. And for me, the biggest plus is that Javier Mascherano recognized the issue and fixed it. Last season, there wasn't enough of these sort of performances where you could see clearly that the coaching staff has made a change in how they want to play because of what the opponent was doing in a previous game or a previous game that we've played with them. And for instance, the Monterrey game, the plan going into the Monterrey game, the first game was good. It was good. It fell apart. The second Monterrey game was all over the place. So it was really good to see.
All right, let's stop. You're going to bring up Tata Martino. We're all having fun.
I'm not. No. I'm not bringing up Tata Martino. All I'm saying is Tata Martino never did this. No, I'm kidding. All I'm saying is this was a very professional performance. This was a very professional performance. And Inter Miami, for once, did exactly how they were supposed to play. That second change with Ian Frey playing slightly deeper, I don't have an award for him, but I don't know if you do. We'll see. But I just want to mention now that Ian Frey as a player has now started to prove after a run of 7 games that he's probably the most complete right back that this league has ever seen. The best right back that the league has ever seen. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
This one might turn out to be true eventually.
This one might turn out to be true. Hey, you're a broken clock that's twice right. I'm a broken clock that's never right. So it's fine. Ian Frey, I think, has demonstrated that he's able to not only go forward and contribute offensively, but also have that discipline defensively to just lock down anybody. And he's impressed me a lot more defensively this season than he has offensively. And that's a good thing. I say that as a positive because we always knew he had that X factor going forward. But now we know he has that stability and that temperament to hold down and lock down anybody who's in front of him. And listen, first game, we saw that this Cavalier team can hurt us on the break and on the wings. So kudos to Ian Frey for sticking it out and playing really well and very structured. And then those two stalwarts, the pillars, man, the veteran presence of Noah Allen combined with the youth of Maxi Falcón was absolutely phenomenal to see. Just so much talent in that back line. I feel like we've finally come to... Can we agree this is our preferred centre-back partnership? I think Maxi Falcón and Noah Allen?
Yeah.
Has to be, right?
Has to be.
It has everything that you want. So for me, I thought the game plan was clear from the set and it worked out to perfection.
I have more thoughts on Maxi Falcón and Noah Allen, but I will save those for when we get to awards. I don't have an award for Ian Frey, so I will just say he has come on and been an X factor, and that's been incredibly exciting, and it's absolutely earned him more starts. There is another factor to being a guy that fits into a team, and that's a slightly different skill set, right? Can you go on to a pitch and have an impact? That's great. Not everyone can do that. But can you also be a guy that can fit into the game plan, do what you need to do tactically to make sure your team wins? And I thought we saw that from Ian Frey last night, which was like another aspect of his game that we haven't seen a ton of because it feels like every time he comes in, it's just to spark things. But it was great to see. And so, yeah, another great game from Ian Frey.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts, or are you ready to get to awards?
I think we can get to awards. I do want to talk about a few more players, and I've got some spicy awards today.
Okay, I have some too. I have 2 that I really like, so I'm hoping you don't steal any of them. But guys, if this is your first time listening, we give out 6 awards on this show: a Heron of the Match, a heron that flew north, and 2 individual awards each. Saur, I went first last time. No, that's not why. I'm a gentleman, and that's why. I'm going to let you go first this time. Who was Inter Miami's man of the match?
It was a bit of a toss-up. There were a couple of candidates. I used the Drive Ping Dialogue platform to promote Maxi Falcón yesterday as our official man of the match, the heron of the match. For me personally, today, I'm going to pick Noah Allen because Maxi Falcón is easier to choose an award for. I'm going to go with Noah Allen as my heron of the match, just because I think this might be his first heron of the match for Drive Ping Dialogue. And also, we need to recognize how insane Noah Allen, who's 20 years old, has been in that backline for us every single game, day in and day out. This is not normal. We have a special player on our hands, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy him while you can, because I think he's going to have offers coming in for him in the summer. So just going to say, Noah Allen, phenomenal player. Did not put a foot wrong yesterday. Ate up everything that Cavalier frontline had to offer, and just so good. Plays like a veteran in that backline, like he's been playing for 30 years. Just so good.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going to go in the summer. I think Noah Allen has a little bit of a problem for projectability going forward if you're going to another level, because I don't know if a lot of teams in Europe are going to look at him and say this is a center back. Just because of the physical profile. Like, I think he's going to have to show more than he has so far. And I don't know if he's putting enough time on film as a left back to prove that he can be good there, but we will see. Obviously he's going to go to Europe if that's what he wants to do. Whether it's going to be this summer, I doubt, but next winter, maybe in the next 2 years, I definitely think it's there for him. But he's the perfect player for this defense. And I agree with you. You mentioned it a few minutes ago, Maxi Falcón and Noah Allen. That's got to be the partnership. I think it's amazing that a week ago we were talking about how there was 5 guys all sort of clumped together. And now to me, it's so obvious that it's Maxi Falcón and Noah Allen. What he does covering for Jordi Alba when Jordi Alba gets forward that's the difference between him and every other center back. He's got the athleticism to do it, but he also has the instincts to understand like how to defend that part of the pitch because of all the time he's played as a left back. So it's like not just that he's great as a center back, but his instincts to cover for Jordi Alba, which allows Jordi Alba to get higher up the pitch, I think is perfect for this team. And so again, another great performance from Noah Allen. I'm totally fine with giving him man of the match. I thought he was excellent last night until he comes off, which, you know, maybe Mascherano gets the heron that flew north for that decision. But other than that, like, I thought he didn't put a step wrong. And the difference he makes covering for Jordi Alba, I think is his differentiating
factor. You can't understate that. You cannot understate that, because in doing that, in trying to cover those positions for Jordi Alba, he can just leave his space in behind completely free and leave that gaping hole in the middle. He has not just the technical ability to cover for Jordi Alba, but the IQ and the brain presence to just understand when he needs to go and when he needs to stay in his center back position. And just, he covers ground like it's nothing. His speed is quite underrated. He's very pacey, and it does not feel like he's 5'8", 5'10". His presence back there is really, really impressive. And it's not just that he's having understated performances that are going under the radar. He's now having performances where you can see that he's a clear difference maker. You saw that Martinez-Falcón partnership. We saw how good it really was, but you could still tell there were issues. There were slight instances where Martinez was cut off. They weren't in the right position. Martinez lost the ball when he went in for tackles and stuff. Noah Allen has learned somehow, whether it's watching the veterans, whether it's learning, he just feels like somebody who's a sponge, who's absorbed all this information from the great players around him. And he just seems to have accumulated that and assimilated that into his game. And you can see the fruit of whatever he's been doing behind the scenes. And credit to the coaching staff for whoever's working with him, because there's levels to his game that have really gone up since last season. And when I say last season, since the last game that he played for us in 2024. So that's not even that long ago. It feels like he's really putting in the effort in the off season, and that's now reflecting in his regular season games. He has to be the starting center back for this team going forward until somebody else proves otherwise.
And listen, when I say starting center back, I think those five, and by those five, I mean Falcón, Allen, Aviles, David Martinez, and Gonzalo Lujan. I think they're going to rotate a lot. But when you're talking about the biggest games,
you have to play him.
You have to play him. He deserves that right now. I think his best position is still as a left back. And I think if he gets an extended run for whatever reason this season, he's going to show us or remind us that. And I think that's what could get him to Europe. So, like, if Jordi Alba does miss a month or something and Noah Allen plays 6 straight games there, I think we'd be really impressed. And I think when we're talking about learning from Jordi Alba, learning from Messi, learning from these guys, that's where I think we're really going to notice the difference. So the fact that he can be an impact player at this position it's incredible, man. He deserves it because he's worked hard and he's learned and he's grown and he's,
and he's our player, man. We didn't buy him from anywhere.
I know.
We didn't pay anything for him. He's our player.
Yeah, built, not bought. It goes back to my bigger point that I'm so impressed with this team is the roster as a whole has elevated since last year. And the fact that some of our young players have been able to elevate with it, it's not just that we brought in better players, and we did, Segovia and Allende and Falcón, but we've had some young players step up with that talent level. Ian Frey and Noah Allen and Jan de Bright have stepped right up with all the elevated talent on this team. So it's really a team rocking on all cylinders right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, second award, the Heron That Flew North. If this is your first time listening, this is the award that goes to a player doing the wrong thing because Florida Herons do not fly north for the winter. So if you catch one flying north for the winter, you're catching them doing the wrong thing. Sorry, because you gave out the man of the match, I will give out the Heron That Flew North, and that goes to Benjamin Kremasky. I actually thought he was fine in the first half, and I thought he had 1 or 2 poor moments in the second half that are going to be what earns him this award. Obviously, that 50th minute play where he bodies off Chris Ainsworth in order to give him space in the box, and then he just freezes. That's the moment that earns this award for me. Summer Sunshine in the chat says people need to calm down. Listen, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about Benha. I think people were, and myself included, were a little over dramatic last night in the immediate reaction. I watched him closely on the rewatch, and I thought he was fine throughout the first half. I thought his shot where Suárez probably got upset with him, I thought that was a fine decision. And it's Suárez, I think, kind of, saying, I'm the big man here, pass me the ball. But I didn't really have a problem with Kremasky's decision-making there. The real brain scratcher was that 50th minute. And then he had another one later on where he kind of didn't handle the situation correctly. But along with some brain dead moments, I thought he had some nice winger-style moments. That 25th minute time where he gets himself into the box, gets himself some space down the touchline. I thought that was really impressive. So, again, another game where he showed me 1 or 2 winger things that I really liked and I thought could translate, but he still looked like a player moving into a new position that had a brain dead moment in that 50th minute. And that's what gives him this award.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the last award that I gave him. I believe it was against Charlotte, the Tick Tick Boom Award, where it almost feels like he's going to have a run of games where he's going to absolutely explode, but it's not happening right now, and that's okay. We need to have a little bit of patience with him. He's going to make mistakes. He may have games like these where fans do get frustrated by some of his decision-making. As you said, he may be a veteran in a Cavalier team, but still in this team, he's on the younger side. So give him time. He's going to have issues. Talking about yesterday's game, I thought he had some good actions, got into some good positions, but the final product was either missing or I think he just lost a little bit of confidence after missing a few opportunities that were quite clear-cut. I'm never a big fan of the senior players in the team shouting too much, at least publicly, at the younger players. But it's okay. He's a professional. He has to deal with it. He has to take that on the chin. And it's a lesson, right? There are no bad moments for players when you're at that point in your career. You just have to take it as a lesson, gain experience, and move on from it. Yesterday, he could have done a few things better. He wasn't phenomenal. I do think he was the worst player for Inter Miami, just because I thought everyone else had a fairly decent game. But it is what it is. You have to measure your criticism for Benjamin Kramaski and maybe justify it for yesterday's game, but I think he's going to do much better going forward for sure. And I think the international break is going to help him a little bit as well. He's obviously been playing a lot of games. He's going to go away with the under 20 squad, probably play at a level, gain his confidence back, and then come back firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what his role is going to be when he gets back, because we're probably going to have Fafa Picault back. We're probably going to have Robert Taylor back, and we would imagine have Baltasar Rodriguez on the roster as well by that point. So I'm not exactly sure what Kramaski's season looks like moving forward, other than he probably will start on, or he might start on Sunday. But we'll get to that, and we'll have those conversations when we have it. Saur, tell me, what is your first award?
I have a few that I've thought about, but I'm going to go for the Doppelganger Award.
The Doppelganger Award. It's Tadeo Allende.
Why do you say that?
Because he's the doppelganger of Diego Gomez, which is exactly what I told you 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, but I don't think Tadeo Allende had much to do in this game in terms of talking points. I thought he was fine. He was good. He had some good moments, got us the penalty, but no, that's not the player I want to talk about. You have the right intuition in terms of why this award is being given out. But I want to give the Doppelganger Award to Santi Morales. And this is because I think for a flash of a second, maybe a millisecond, we saw flashes of how Lionel Messi plays in Santi Morales. I'm not even going to go there. We're not going to have that conversation. But I wanted to give Santi Morales a award because I thought he had some really positive moments when he came on, and he had his first senior assist for this team. So that deserves to be celebrated. It was a very good through ball. He came on, injected some pace into the game, injected some energy and some excitement. I really liked how he tried to get on the ball. I'll be honest, there were some instances where I got a bit confused, whether it was Messi on the ball, whether it was Morales on the ball. And then I realized he had a bad touch. And I was like, okay, that's not Messi. That's Santi Morales. I thought he tried a little bit too hard at times, tried to do a few things, passes here and there that did not come off. But overall, what I saw from him at that point in the game, very positive. And I thought that deserved to be recognized. And of course, got that game-winning assist. Let's just say that.
Okay. Well, maybe I should. A lot of hyperbole there. Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely. A lot of hyperbole.
Yeah. He came on for 15 minutes and sparked, looked attacking. And I think he's continued to do exactly what he's been doing since his first minutes of the preseason. He comes on, he gets on the ball, he tries to push the pace forward. He has pretty nice vision. He can make a nice pass and set a guy up. I think he's earned more minutes. I'll put it that way. I certainly won't go with any Messi comparisons. I will leave the sensationalism to you, but no, I think he's earned more minutes.
Comparison by any means. I just couldn't think of another award name for him.
I had an award name for him that I thought was much better, but I think you probably would have hated. I hate that I have to have this type of conversation because it was his, I think, second appearance for the first team in terms of competitive games. His first assist, first goal contribution, all that stuff. First CONCACAF Champions Cup appearance.
But we have to be measured.
But
he's never played a full game for Inter Miami, right? That's what you're going to say.
I'm just going to say he's never had to show a complete game. He's never had to be disciplined in the midfield. He's never had to be defensively sound in the midfield. Like, there are so many parts of his game that we haven't seen yet. And so do I think he's done enough in his 10-minute cameos to get more 10-minute cameos? Certainly. Do I think he's done enough to earn a start? Maybe. Or like a 45-minute run out? Maybe. But I just want everyone to hold the brakes on saying he's better than Kramaski or whoever. Because he has a little juice to him going forward, but he's only come on in games that have already been decided where he's going to have the freedom to just push the pace and get forward. And I think that's what he does best. And so I love that Javier Mascherano is putting him in a situation to have some success early on. And I hate the fact that I have to bring this to the conversation. I'd much rather just be
No,
hyped up
I'm
about a
happy
young
to
player.
I'm happy to feed into that because the context and yardstick with which we should judge Santi Morales is different from someone like Benjamin Kramaski. So you have to contextualize that. When we say he had a great performance, he had a great performance for somebody who's coming off the bench for 10 minutes and has a limited time to show, and he's 18 years old. So our expectations of him are very low, but what he can showcase within those 10, 15 minutes are quite positive. And I think that's where you have to take into account the commendations that you give him. It doesn't necessarily mean that I am clamoring for him to start in front of Ben-Hur, start more games, but I do think he had a positive impact in this team. Of course, there's room for improvement when he's going to play the full 90 minutes. We have to see what he brings to the table. And I personally do not think he's ready for a full start yet. But I thought yesterday he had a really good chance. And there's another reason I wanted to give him an award, because I'm not sure if he gets too many minutes going forward after the international break, because now we've got Baltazar Rodriguez coming back as well. Once we get Robert Taylor, Fafa Pico back, maybe even Alan Abondo, it's not looking good in terms of minutes for Santi Morales and Leo Alfonso. Yeah. So I wanted to take this chance to just appreciate that whatever chance he's been given, he looks good. And I think in the next year or so, I would like to track his development to see how he builds on this, because there's definitely a player there who can play for Inter Miami in the long run.
Yeah, we've talked about this, but there's so many good players in this team that there are going to be guys that don't even make the bench. So even when you do have a blowout, they won't
Julian
be available.
Gressel.
Right. So Julian Gressel, Ryan Saylor, Leo Alfonso, and Santi Morales are going to be guys that struggle to make the bench when you have Fafa Pico back, when you bring in Obando, Baltasar, Cello Weekend, right? When some of these guys come back, like it's going to be hard for them to even be on the bench for those 10, 15-minute opportunities that present themselves in games that are well in hand. So I agree with you. I have a question for you. Next Tuesday, the 19th, Inter Miami plays in the U.S. Open Cup against Miami United. I believe it's next week. Do you want to see Santi Morales starting for the B team in that game? Do you want to see Leo Alfonso starting for the B team in that game and sort of integrate them into that team, especially for that tournament? Because I don't know how many real runouts they're going to get with the A team. Like, is that something you want to see next week?
Absolutely. Because they need minutes as well.
Yeah.
There's only as much you can do sitting on the bench and playing 10-minute cameos here and there. You have to play 4 games, just build that physicality, obviously, but also the game sense, so the game IQ. And when you play competitive matches, that's how you develop that. And I want them to play those games, because I think they're going to shine in those games when we play the right opponent. And as I said, we're going to have a lot of firepower coming in after the international break. So you want these players to be ready and embedded into those teams that are going to be playing the Open Cup squad. And I think that's where they're going to shine and get those minutes that we need to build their experience as well.
Yeah, I hope they do play, and I hope Inter Miami is able to win that first game against Miami United, because I think it would set the B team up and maybe convince some of the A team players to participate in that tournament going forward. But we'll have to wait and see. Okay, my first individual award, and you're going to hate me for doing this. I'm giving out
the Jamaica reference.
No, that's coming in my last award. I'm giving out the Aviation Sensation Award.
The Aviation Sensation Award. It's Maxi Falcón, isn't it?
I'm sorry, but I had to do it, man. He was my player of the match. I mean, no, Allen's a fine shout, but he was everywhere. He's so sound. He's always in the right spot. Doesn't feel like we've had a center back like this in a while. And I can just see the look of disappointment on your face. As I'm sure you had a great award for him. I thought you were going to take him first, honestly.
But I knew that you knew that I was going to take him eventually. So I thought I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball.
Couldn't
backfired because my last award isn't that great.
Backfired big time. He's
my
so
last
good,
award
dude.
is quite poor. I'm just going to put it out there right now, guys. Sorry. Apologies in advance for what I'm about to say. But anyways, go on.
Maxi Falcón, his performance, let's just put it this way. His performance deserved us to be fighting for who gives to give him an award first because he was that good. Obviously, whoever scores a goal or gets an assist is going to get a high rating in terms of how the analytics rate people. But I thought minute-to-minute basis, he was the best player on the pitch. He's so sound, sure-footed, never panics, is good in tight spaces. He's a real player, man.
He's an absolute maniac, and I love him.
Yeah.
Within the first 2 minutes, he had this.
He's actually not a maniac, though. He's
no. Here's what I'm going to
calm.
say. Here's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
In the first 3 minutes, he had this moment where he received the ball, and you could see the Cavalier player just running, trying to press him, and with no sort of panic, he just dribbled the ball past him and got into space, and he was out. I was like, oof, that was risky, but it looked really good. And then every time I thought he was getting into a difficult position, he'd just make a really calm, composed decision to just either boot the ball out when it needs to be booted or play the ball out or pass in the right direction. I feel like he's a perfect combination between an old school defender who would go hard and who would go physical, just boot the ball out as soon as it comes in, and a modern day defender who can play out from the back, who knows his positioning well, who can pass the ball really well, break the lines, make those long balls as well. He is so good with how he judges the game. He knows exactly where he needs to be. He knows when he's going to get beaten on certain things, and he can go in for a tackle and win the ball. There was a moment where I believe it was Stein in the second half. I'm not sure, but he went in for a tackle and got the ball away. And if he hadn't gone for that sweeping tackle, the Cavalier player would have been through on goal. So he knows when to make those decisions. And just as you said, he's very calm and composed, but doesn't look it. I always have, and maybe this is because we haven't seen enough of him, and we have this impression of him being this Cavalier sort of a player, pardon my pun, that I think in my mind that he's going to take a lot of risks, but he doesn't. He takes no risks. He just does his job, does exactly what's expected of him, and honestly, he's a very complete defender. Very complete. Really good in the air, really good with the ball at his feet, calm and composed, positioning's fantastic. 2 games and he's done superb so far.
Yeah, it feels like for so long Inter Miami's relied on either young guys who are sort of still coming into their own, like Toto Aviles, veterans that are sort of past their prime, guys like Sergei Christoph, or sort of reclamation projects that have had some real injury history, like Nico Frede and David Martinez. And it doesn't feel like, and by the way, throw Chris McVeigh in as a young guy trying to establish himself. To a much lesser extent, Kamal Miller. It doesn't feel like Inter Miami's had a prime age, really good defender in years. And so to have that, it's really nice. It's very comforting. And again, it allows you to have a player like Noah Allen on the other side who complements him, but that you're never really worried about, communication or anything. It's so comforting to have him back there. And unlike what his hairstyle maybe looked like, he's not out of control. He's not a wild man. He's not coming in for making yellow card tackles all the time or heavy challenges or anything. He's just composed, calm, good on the ball. There was a moment in the second half where the ball sort of bounced around the box. He falls and he kind of just does a quick push-up, gets up and pushes the ball out of danger. I mean, it was just he's really just so calm and composed. It's really nice.
And he's really exciting to watch as well. Like, I like watching him play. He has this ability to make you feel good about your defense, right? And I feel like this has more to do with us as Inter Miami fans who haven't had a player like this in the back line in a while, who just calms everything down. So every time we're in a position of danger, I go into this escapism mode where I'm fearing the worst. I'm thinking someone's either going to get redded, we're either going to pass the ball to the opposition. But so far, Falcón has just proven that he's clean. I think that's the word. He's clean and he just sweeps everything up. Probably going to use another cleaner reference in one of the awards that we do for him in the future. But I'm really, really pleased with the kind of player that he is. And what a good find from the front office, because he's going to be an absolute baller for this Inter Miami backline.
Yeah. There's nothing else to say. I mean, it's crazy that we spent all that time trying to build up or trying to find like some under the radar signing that was injured. But
you spend all that time trying to. Oh, sorry, you're saying under the radar signing. I thought you were gonna say we spent all this time figuring out what his role on this team was going to be, and I was gonna say you spent a lot of time thinking about what his role in this team was going to be. But I think it's clear he has to be a starter, right?
No, that's not where I was going. I meant Toto Aviles, I think, has a ton of potential, and I think he's a good player. But like bringing him in and then trying to develop him into a great player, or bringing a player that's had a lot of injuries that was very promising before the injuries and trying to, a reclamation project to see if you can get it to stick in Miami, to just bring in a guy that's just good. Like that's really nice.
And sometimes you need those players next to your young developing players as well, because otherwise the young developing players don't have an example to live by. So regardless.
Okay. Saur, what is your second award?
My second award is the Fine China Award. I'm sorry, I have a really poor award, and I'm quite embarrassed by it.
If you just took my last award, I'm gonna be upset.
I'm gonna use the Fine China Award.
This Fine China, obviously, of course, is the reference to the very nice plates and dishware that your parents and grandparents have locked away in the nice cabinet. And it is most commonly referred to when there's a bull in the china shop knocking everything over. And in this case, that bull is Luis Suarez, because he's got over the head kicks. He's got kicks off the volley, shots off the volley. Can't run, but he can do all that stuff. He's a bull in a china shop, and yet somehow it always works.
Well, then it would be called the Bull in the China Shop Award, right? I will say your explanation might be better than my actual award. So maybe it is Luis Suarez. Why not? Let's give it to him. But no, I don't want to cheat the system, and I will stay true to my own identity. And I'm going to give it to Federico Redondo. And I'm going to let you figure out why I'm giving it to Federico Redondo, because I can see that I used up. And I got my revenge, guys. I used up Scotty's last award, so I'm quite pleased with that. And this award has suddenly turned into the best award there is tonight. So, Fine China Award goes to Federico Redondo. Do you want to guess why?
Yeah, because he's a little awkward, but he's like you put him in the pantry and you only bring him out for special occasions. There you go. Boom. Got it.
Yeah, that's a good one. But my explanation is slightly harsher. Fine China is very expensive. You buy it for certain occasions, and you bring it out, as you said, on special occasions, but it also does the same job as a regular china, as regular dishes for a regular plate where you eat food off it. I think Federico Redondo is a great player. Yesterday, he did exactly what was expected of him. He was in the right positions. He made the right choices. Covered for for Busquets, all of that, yes. But I still need to see why he's going to be that player who's going to shine on the special occasions. Because right now, if you ask me, in a major game, do we bring Redondo into the midfield? My answer would be no. So he's a fine china. He's expensive. He's been brought to play for the big occasions. But so far, he's not proven his worth yet. Over to you. Save me from a waffle.
I really wanted to talk about him in this game, so I'm glad he got an award. I would have given him one at the end if you hadn't. Certainly mine was better, but that's neither here nor there. I feel like I was and us, but I mean, I identify most strongly with the position that Redondo needed to be reevaluated for what he was at Inter Miami. And last season, so many people just saw him as this young, exciting talent that had all of these tools and was long and tall and worked hard and ran fast and all of these things, that he was just a great player. And I think I brought this up over and over and over again, and we talked about it so much, that his game actually has real holes in it. But I also feel like we need to pull the brakes on that conversation, because there was a time last year where he was pushing Diego Gomez out of his natural position. And there was a time where he was putting Yannick Bright on the bench. So when you're talking about a player and you're talking about the expectations and how much criticism they should criticism is the wrong word, how much feedback they should receive, both negative and positive. It's oftentimes based on what we should be expecting from them. And if you're pushing Diego Gomez to that left wing because you have to be on the field, like you have to be good enough to prove you're worth that. And if you're going to bench Yannick Bright because Federico Redondo has to be on the field, you have to prove you're good enough to do that every single game. Because the two guys you moved out of position or to the bench, those guys are ballers. Yannick Bright, I think, is clearly ahead of Federico Redondo. And I think Javier Mascherano sees it that way too. And so now that we're talking about Federico Redondo as a guy who comes off the bench or as a rotation option or whatever, I think we can get back to he's 22, he's young, exciting, long, works hard, has some tools, can put a nice ball forward, and that he needs to fit himself into this ultra-talented team. And that's the same position that Kramaski finds himself in. It's the same position that David Ruiz finds himself in. It's the same position that Baltasar Rodriguez is going to find himself in. And so when you put him on that level as a guy fighting to try and win starts or earn starts, I think he's a really good option. And so I wanted to have that conversation because he's a young player developing, and he shouldn't be crushed because when he does get a start, he's not better than Yannick Bright or Talasco Segovia or whoever, right? Like he's going to get game time, but it's no longer the game time that he has to be a starter just because we spend a bunch of money on him, and it doesn't matter who has to get benched because of it. And so in that context, I like Redondo. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to add a lot of value to this team. And I don't think he's going to start in the biggest games, and that's okay. And that's fine. And if he does end up starting in the biggest games, it's because he's earned it in a way that he didn't last year. And so that's all I'm going to say on on Federico Redondo. The expectations and standards for what we should expect from him are lower this year. And I think they're in the right place, and we just need to have that adjustment. We no longer need to criticize him like he's a superstar, because he's not that. But now that we see him as a regular player, I think we can be more positive about him overall.
I'm not sure. I like how you're thinking on this, and this is something that I didn't really think about, that reorienting expectations for Redondo might be the right thing to do at this point in time. But I'm still not fully convinced if Javier Mascherano doesn't think that he's a starter. It's still early days in the season, and I do want to give Javier Mascherano credit for honestly playing players based on their performance levels and not because of the price tag, not because of their name value or whatever. So yes, maybe he does earn that trust now, and we can say that Redondo is not the preferred starter for Javier Mascherano. And if that's the case, then Redondo's expectations from what this season would look like has sort of changed. But if we had this conversation 5 games ago, it would have been completely different. So You're right. Maybe that reorientation needs to happen. But I still don't think Javier Mascherano treats Redondo as a bench player. I think he has plans for him as a starter. We'll see. We'll see as the season progresses. In the next few weeks, I think we're going to figure out how Javier Mascherano considers this, because we will have a few big games. Atlanta game is going to be an important one. I will say, if Yannick Bright doesn't start in the Atlanta game, would you be surprised?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that would be a good indication of where things stand. But you're right. I think the way we think about Redondo might need to change, because there's still room for this player to grow. And you're absolutely right. It's unfair to crucify him for one bad performance, because at the end of the day,
Well,
he's still
I don't think he played bad.
developing.
I don't think he played
No,
poor
he
at
didn't
all.
play
Like,
poorly.
I thought he was fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, sorry. It's unfair to expect him to change the game immediately and have like a massive impact, because it will come with time. So I agree with you on this.
Well, and as long as the expectations are he's a rotational piece, he's a squad player, then I think he's a great squad player. It's just when he's benching Yannick Bright or Talasco Segovia or Diego Gomez last year, like that's when we start to have problems of the coaches seeing too much in Federico Redondo. Okay, final award of the night. Coming up with it on the spot. Gonna go with the Jamaican theme. Give me a little Bob Marley. Every little thing is gonna be all right award.
That goes to Lionel Messi, because every time he comes on the pitch, everything is going to be all right. He's going to carry us to the treble. He's going to carry us into paradise. You know what? After this season, retire into Miami Football Club as a football club because we're going to win everything after this. Are we not? Or am I overreacting?
Well, he is going to win us the treble, and he is going to take us to heaven, or paradise. So yeah, no, I think that's right, man. It's great to have him back. I don't know what else to say. Like, it wasn't a huge game. It wasn't really a game for him to have huge moments, and yet he still finds a way to score. And I had to come up with an award on the spot, so who better to give it to than
No, I think that was a good award, and this is the beauty of the Drive Pink Dialogue Awards, right? Sometimes you just have to make things on the spot because they get stolen. And you stole my award, so I stole your award, unfortunately. If you were better prepared like I was, you would have come up with 3 awards or 4 awards because that would give you a little bit of room to play around with.
I did
Coming
have
back
3
to your
awards.
award.
You took both Santi Morales and Federico Redondo from me, so it is what it is. Okay, I still think we have some things to talk about beyond just the performance in this game. So let's speed through. Oscar Ustari didn't have a ton to do. He had one moment where he kind of swept really well, but other than that, he was did what
Had
he
one
did.
good save as well in the second half.
Ian Frey, we talked about it, played much more conservatively, but that's what the game plan called for, and I thought it worked really well. Tadeo Allende earns a penalty. Didn't get his goal. He had a couple shots, especially a header that he put wide. But, he just continues to look like kind of a man among boys when he's just so big and physical and can run and can jump. It's really impressive. Segovia, I thought, looked better. The last 2 games, I thought he looked tired. He looked more energized in this game, and he gets off early. So hopefully he goes into that Atlanta series, that Atlanta game with a bunch of energy. Luis Suárez, beautiful penalty, perfect penalty. You honestly can't do it any better. Maybe you could bounce it off 2 posts in it instead of 1, but truthfully, it was a perfect penalty. David Ruiz, terrible that he goes down with an injury. I thought he was going to have a big game just because this feels like the type of game he would be good in. Busquets did what Busquets does, and we talked about pretty much everyone else. Santi Morales, Yannick Bright looked fine. Kermaski, Toto Aviles comes on, but it was at a point in the game where it wasn't a ton to really look into. So anybody you want to talk about?
No, it was a very comfortable game. I thought everyone had their little bit of roles to play here and there, especially in the starting 11. I like the game plan with which we went in this game. And I thought it was really positive that Sergio Busquets got some minutes off. Luis Suarez got some minutes off because that Atlanta game is going to be big and we need to step up there. So overall, the night went exactly how you wanted it to go. No major injuries. Ruiz, I know, out for 3-4 weeks, but it's not as bad as you first feared, and I think he's going to be back soon enough. So overall, a good game for us as Inter Miami fans.
Yeah, I want to talk about how important winning was, and I want to spend 2 minutes talking about LAFC, but I mentioned it in the pregame show, and I had a whole monologue about it because winning last night was hugely important, not just advancing, but winning the game last night. Because how you perform in the tournament in the prior rounds determines who gets home field advantage moving forward. Inter Miami, 4 games played, 4 victories. No other team in the tournament has done that. The closest team is Cruz Azul, who's on the other side of the bracket, who has 3 wins and a draw. And so that means Inter Miami will continue to have home field advantage as long as they don't mess it up. They even have built themselves a little bit of wiggle room. They can draw one of the LAFC games, win the other one, still get home field advantage in the semifinals. And so that is huge. And if you can maintain that all the way to the final, right? And Cruz Azul, you don't want to play. Like, I don't know if they're going to make it. They're not the favorite over Club America, but you don't want to play around with that. So if you can get the final in Miami or South at Fort Lauderdale, that would be huge. And then the semifinal, we might have to play Pumas, Vancouver, also going to be there. And that's, of course, if we can get through LAFC. But having the home field advantage, especially being in a good position to continue having home field advantage, I think that makes that win last night so important.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that we're already talking about what's going to happen when we reach the semifinals and the finals, because that's how we're viewing the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I just want to play that final at home, man.
Dude, yeah, same. And again, last year, Columbus went to Pachuca and they all got food poisoning. Like, that's the kind of thing that happens when you go to play a final in Mexico. Can't have that. Don't risk it. Just win the games. Like, go. And by the way, we're about to go play in LAFC. Listen, it's in 3 weeks, right? So we have some time. But when we go play that game, go win that game. Go win that game in LA. This LAFC team, and maybe this is a good transition to talk about LAFC. They're not that good. Denny Bouanga is a stud, but they lost the entire middle portion of their roster and the big striker that they expected to be sort of the star for them, Olivier Giroud. He sucks, man, in this league. And he's not a bad player. He's a bad player for the MLS. If we had more time, I wanted to go on a little bit of a conversation about how the entire league has it wrong and that it's Inter Miami's fault that they all have it wrong, that bringing these European veterans that don't have a ton of athleticism to this league and thinking it's just going to work because it worked for Suárez and Busquets. That is wrong. It is not how this league operates. Teams should stop doing it. And that was the way this league was going. And then Messi came and Busquets and Suárez were incredible. And so a bunch of teams started going back to that. It's a bad strategy for success. And you're going to get caught with guys like Olivier Giroud on your roster who just can't help you. He's not going to start against Inter Miami. It's going to be Avi Bosset, who also is not like a star. I think Inter Miami has a great chance to win both those games.
And Denny Bouanga has to go up against Ian Frey. That's going to be a matchup for the ages.
Advantage Herons, right?
Exactly.
And you know, you got Yannick Bright on the field too, in the midfield, and then you have so much talent going forward. You're going to score goals. I know some people are saying that home field doesn't matter as much because of the away goals rule, but that's not going to come into effect if you're Inter Miami, because you're going to go on the road and get those away goals in the first leg, make it really easy for yourself in the second leg. So Inter Miami is set up so well, and Monterrey lost, which was the other big team on our half of the bracket. Vancouver upset them. So we will see in the semifinal, it will be Vancouver or Pumas. But I mean, Inter Miami's set up so well. They are the best team in the MLS. I think they're the best team in CONCACAF. As long as they don't have a huge injury crisis, I think they're going to win this tournament. And by the way, I think out of all the people in the Inter Miami fandom community, I think I said it first that they were going to win this tournament.
We're not there yet, Scotty. So let's just pull it back slightly a little bit. We still have 5 games to play.
I've already gone on the record and said it, so it's too late to pull it back.
I think we're looking very promising for this tournament, but we'll see how things proceed. We have to win against LAFC away from home, put that marker down early, and then we can bring back him back home to Fort Lauderdale and just show them who's the boss, regardless.
That's going to be so awesome. Okay. Any before we wrap it up, any thoughts on Atlanta? Let me ask you a question. Is this a big game for Inter Miami? Because obviously Atlanta beat us in the playoffs. Like the site of our biggest failure was the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But we're at the end of like a really long run. It's on the road. It's on turf. It's right before the international break. It's on a Sunday. How are we feeling about this?
It's the same as the one against Charlotte. If we win, Inter Miami's the best team in the league. If we lose, we're just playing too many games and fatigued a little bit.
Nailed it.
It's as simple as that. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. As I said, the MLS is not that much of a priority right now, so we shouldn't worry too much about what the result's going to be. Whether we win or lose doesn't have to mean too much. But symbolically, I think the fact that we lost to Atlanta in the playoffs last season is a big factor. All these players would want revenge. And then secondly, Atlanta has really done well in the offseason and is touted as one of the favorites for the MLS Supporters Shield. They got Chris Henderson. They're being treated as this big team that has brought these pieces together and is going to be fantastic over the course of the season. So what better way to just show who actually runs the league by beating them at their own home ground?
But tell me if you feel differently about this. Like Atlanta, I think, is a really good MLS team with really good talent. But Inter Miami is just operating on a different level. Like that's what it feels like to me. And maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe Charlotte and Houston NYCFC actually turns out they're not that good at all. But I have a feeling that this Inter Miami team is just talent-wise on another level, or maybe even 2 levels above.
Yeah, but we messed ourselves up against New York City FC that we can never beat. So I was a little bit surprised. And Atlanta, they just are Achilles heel. We are so poor against Atlanta every time we play them. So
I'm not saying that Miami can't lose. I'm not saying Miami can't lose.
Yeah, but we are just head and shoulders above them. Yeah, from a talent perspective on paper, we're head and shoulders above them.
just for the record, and we'll end on this, to you, Saur, but also to you, Fall River, who's in the chat, and he says that we haven't played anyone good yet. Like, that's how I feel about Atlanta. So they're a good MLS team, but they're nothing compared to Inter Miami, or they're just okay compared to Inter Miami. Like, is there anyone that you consider, like, who is good that if Inter Miami beats them, it will confirm that Inter Miami is actually great?
Monterrey, like, but they're out.
Well, that's not happening. It's not happening.
You listen, it doesn't matter who's good or who's not. If you've not played anyone good or you haven't, they're in front of you, you dispatch them. It's as simple as that. I don't feed into this trope that
who's good?
Someone isn't. Go on.
Palmeiras and Porto.
Yeah.
Right? Until we beat them, we're not that good. That's what.
No, but honestly, I don't feed into this trope that we haven't played anyone good yet. Liverpool hasn't played anyone good yet. They're going to be winning the league, right? Because nobody is better than them behind them. They're just that good. That's the fact. And I feel like you have to beat whoever's in front of you. And that's it. That's the fact. Atlanta's in front of us. If we beat them, Inter Miami's the best team in the league. If we lose to them, we weren't on our game on that particular day and we're tired from all the games that we played recently. That's it. As simple as that.
Isn't it great to be in that position?
So good.
Okay, guys. That's it for tonight. Thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And by the way, tell us in the comments who had a better set of awards, Saur and his very pitiful Fine China award, or me and my thematically appropriate awards. Let us know in the comments section. But until then, we'll be back for the pregame show. We will see you 1 hour before kickoff against Atlanta. We will be hyped up for it. It will be an opportunity for revenge. And I'm very excited for that. Saur, until then, thank you for being with us. We will see you guys next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.